This video will show the differences between a wealth area and a poor area. The two zones analyzed are Notting Hill and Ladbroke Grove. That, although they are really close and one after another, they show many social differences. I will relate my observation to the theories, analyzing how these inequalities can or cannot affect the education and the expectation of these pupils belonging to different social classes. The area of Notting Hill is a wealth area. As we can notice by the luxury of the shop within the roads, this area would be referred to as high socio-economic status area. We are frequently told that class is dead, or alternatively, if we are not all equal, at least we enjoy equal opportunities within meritocracy. This has been analyzed and proved to be far from true. It is critical to understand how the disadvantages of young people occurs and how it impacts their educational lives and personalities. Smith and Wrigley in 2013 suggested that class division and class power have direct and mediated effect on schooling, profoundly restricting young people's learning and development. Class and poverty are distinct issues but strongly related. Poverty in the modern world is not accidental misfortune or degrees of disadvantage, but the product of an economic system that employs people only so long as they generate profit. Smith and Wrigley in 2013 also suggested that poverty is the consequence not of weak production but of an unjust patterns of ownership and distribution within a class-divided economic system. Inequality from the 50 grew incredibly. 6 people in the world have the equal amount of money as 3 billion of the population. Therefore, making a selection and education reproduce inequality. If we have a closer look to the Notting Hill area, we can identify immediately that there are many differences comparing to Ladbroke Grove area, although it's only 15 minutes walk in between them. The shops in Notting Hill are luxury, branded, and the average spend is high. Thus, this is not affordable for working class families. In this area, we can also find private schools with high fees, in which working class pupils will not be able to afford school taxes. These schools are considered with more prestige and they guarantee to succeed with the help of tutors or facilities. Ladbroke Grove area presents a complete different perspective. State schools here look less organized and with less facilities, such as libraries or computers. And very often the children in this school have problems of socialization or they have misconduct, sometimes even causing big problems. The shops around this area reflect the poverty and the situation in which these families are used to live. However, many shops are cheaper in order to accommodate the needs of the people living in this area. We can see shops selling fruits and vegetables for £1, or even shops that are offering achievable flats or room to rent. There is a free library for children, which is the only facility that can help these pupils to study. Otherwise, in these little houses, it would be very difficult to study and concentrate, even because often many people live together with a lot of noise and the impossibility to have their own space. Silva, in 1973, argues that development of British education system, from the point where education was wholly the preserve of the rich, through forms of voluntary education for the poor, to compulsory education for all, has been characterized by concern about social class and about equality. The first social class theory I want to explore is the functionalist theory. Durkheim is the father of functionalism. He was especially interested in how social order is possible or how society remains relatively stable. Bartlett and Barton in 2016 argued that functionalism interprets each member in terms of how it contributes to the stability of the whole society. Therefore, functionalists suggest that education functions for the sake of society, whilst Marxists For example, see education as a reinforcing a class system which is based on inequality. Thus, education may encourage inequality to grow. However, functionalism has been critiqued by many sociologists for its negative implication of social order. One of these critics is Antonio Gramsci, that claimed that functionalism does not encourage people to take an active role in changing their social environment. Instead, functionalism sees the status quo and the cultural hegemony which maintains it as the key for a working society. If this would be changed, everything would collapse. Marxists believe that the key point in the control of the proletariat is the use of alienation in all aspects of society, including the family, the education system, and the media. This provides the bourgeoisie with a mass of workers who do not mind working for the external rewards of a constant wage. Marx believed that economic power led to political power and that this is the key to understand societies. They also believed that institutions such as churches, prisons, and schools have been created to maintain the division between the powerful and the powerless. Another important theory to consider while observing social class is the habitus theory. The father of this theory is Bourdieu. Bourdieu claimed that each class has a different habitus. He suggested that we have internalized social structure and impose limits on what we feel we can and cannot do. Nash, in 1990, argues that because of these limits that the habitus impose to the people, they will be more likely to feel achieving or not their goal. But because we are not conscious of these limits, we cannot change them. Bourdieu suggests that education works in the same way. Children coming from the working class background will automatically feel less capable than children coming from a high socio-economic background. Therefore, some people are more likely to succeed in education rather than others, mostly due to which class one is born into. However, Ray, in 2009, suggested that even if this process is internalized, it can be changed. Ray also argues that habitus starts at home with the family, like the socialization. Yet, only a change during the person's life can bring him to change even the habitus. For example, being able to study away from his working class background. Ball, in 2003, suggests that the new habitus can be laid over, but this causes a habitus clash or conflict leading to feelings of not belonging. In her article, Ray claims that if people would have prestigious school or university even in the low socioeconomic area, then it would be easier to access it. Many times, one of the problems not to enter a better course in a specific university is indeed due to the cost of traveling or the living cost if one thinks to live away from home. The conflict theory suggests that there is conflict between the two classes because one group, namely the bourgeoisie, has too much, while the other, namely the proletariat, has really less. Bowl and Gintis in 1976 suggested that bourgeoisie uses education to filter their ideas down to the proletariat, shaping people's thinking, maintaining and legitimate class inequalities, promoting capital's values. Last area I am exploring is the cultural capital. Bourdieu and Passeron in 1977 believed that one way in which education ensures the reproduction of society is the cultural capital passed from a generation to another. The capital, which is passed, it can be properties, characteristics, and behaviors. Middle-class students will be more likely to be attuned to these schemas, while working-class students must strive to acquire this dominance and the codes will result more opaque. Middle-class students will be more likely to be attuned to these schemas. Middle-class students will learn how to behave and have manners. They have a wide vocabulary and appropriate language, Working class students have less opportunities to acquire the same knowledge, and therefore they will struggle to go on in schooling. Without the support of their parents, that might also influence their experience. Indeed, working class families push their children to learn a manual job to work as soon as possible to help in the family. Social inequalities are not simply based on wealth. The accumulation of cultural attributes can be reinvested into education. Bourdieu claimed that these attributes possessed by the middle-class children help them to succeed at school and give them the advantage over their working-class peer. Their cultural values are in effect an economic advantage to be released in the future. As pupils progress through the various stages of schooling, this cultural capital accumulates further and is ultimately high valued in order to have a future high-status role in society. This video shows the differences between a low socioeconomic area and a high socioeconomic one. In the area of Notting Hill, we could notice an evidence of wealth, but the luxury shops and the infrastructures such as school, private school, and ornamental buildings. Instead, Ladbroke Grove area showed different aspects such as cheaper shop in order to accommodate people's needs, state school with less facilities and space, and even the clothes sold in this area are very different from the ones sold in Notting Hill, although they are only 15 walking miles. I related how these inequalities can affect their education experience and how this could be changed.